Hi, everybody. Welcome to Monday. And hope everybody had a good weekend. We had one nice day on the weekend, and then it started raining again. So we took Loki, the sort of dog, for a walk. He quite enjoyed it. I'm starting to think my dog is like the dog equivalent of an internet troll. He gets very, very fixated on smelling particular parts of like areas. I call it checking his P-mail. He's a real marker. Drives me crazy. Never had a dog that lifted his leg as much as this damn dog did. But I'm starting to think like we were walking and he was like sniffing and sniffing, and he went back and forth and he went back and forth. He found the exact right spot to pee on it. And it's like, is my dog like doing the dog version of shit posting and trolling some other animal? I don't know how to feel about this. This is just an aside. This is not the topic, but it kind of is. It kind of is for today, because this is the time of year where stuff starts to get, I'll say, silly. Before we get to that, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. I'm going to try to do topics this week that are less likely to get demonetized or limited ads, just to kind of understand the system. They say I accurately self-rate my videos now. I have no idea what that gets me. But hey, I earned YouTube's approval, even though they keep making money off of me and clawing it away. But this is sort of the time of year that stuff starts to get special on the internet. I used to think it was the lead up to E3 that there was sort of this lull in news, and so websites were pushing out kind of hot takes to pad, because they have to keep the clicks coming in, but there isn't like enough news to make that a sort of organic thing. And but this year it's been sort of a steady stream. There's no E3 per se, so everybody's just kind of doing their own reveals. We had some Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we had all that Last of Us stuff, and yet we're still getting this influx of hot takes, and they upset people. And I understand why. People feel very, I don't know the word, but it bothers them, and it's sincere upset. And I'm not one of these people who are like, oh, you're just fragile. That's lacking empathy. There's a reason that people get upset when it's not that they feel targeted. It's that they feel like an IP or a game that they love has been targeted. And that's not the same impulse. There's an element of altruism in feeling like you have to defend a game franchise you love, as opposed to it being, about you. And I'm not assigning a particular political affiliation to the hot takes and the bad takes and all that stuff. I'm not a big fan of a bad take. People who just go bad take and that's it. I think you have to justify why you think something is a bad take. And people too often don't. But there are certain things, and they happen. It starts about now, and it goes on through the summer. And then by the time fall comes rolling around, we usually get that pre-holiday release schedule, and everybody's too busy actually playing and sometimes reviewing games to write the same number of hot take pieces. And I don't know if it's also because people are back in school. By that point, they're back in the routine. Summer, people have too much time on their hands in the summer, and so they can ruminate about stuff, and these hot takes ensue. And the thing I have found about the hot takes that really upset people is that it's not just the position the author is taking or the video is taking. It's that they do use very aggressive language, and they do seem to be they do seem to be attacking the reader or a particular subset of the readership in a way that seems quite deliberate, and to me intended to provoke a response, which is why I pick my battles in that regard. I tend to only weigh in on certain things I don't care about. I weighed in on the Mortal Kombat thing, which I did care about, and look what happened. I got called a racist and a femcel and all that stuff, and that's what happens when you weigh in. I think I survived that, if not won that battle of wills. But still, you do have to be prepared when you weigh in to get not just criticism, but if you say something provocative, you have to be prepared for people to be provoked. People overdo it. That is a real thing. There are limits. No one should be threatened for their opinions. I also don't think that people should get personal about opinions. I think that if we want other people to understand us and accept us when we say something they don't agree with, we have to show an ability to have that skill ourselves. But let's face it, the people that put out some of these hot takes, they're not exactly people who handle criticism well, right? They treat all criticism as some sort of harassment, but that's the thing. People who treat all criticism as harassment use that criticism to convince themselves that they're right. They actually use people disagreeing with them as a way of not questioning themselves, of feeding into their feedback loop. And too many people are in feedback loops right now. And so it's one of those things where you have to fight smart, not hard. And that's tough when somebody attacks a game franchise that you care about. Especially one of those cute, cuddly game franchises that there's a lot of nostalgia, there's a lot of comfort in those games. And I think there is a profound lack of understanding of why a lot of players, but specifically male players, play games like the Mario games, and the Kirby games, and the Animal Crossing games. You know, that kind of chibi, kawaii type games. There's a whole comfort psychology in those interactions. At least in myself. Like, you guys know I love my blood and guts games, right? You've seen me play Doom. But I do like my cute, cuddly games too. I mean, I've got a Sackboy back there from Little Big Planet, behind Gollum. I love Little Big Planet. But it was, to me, one of the most violent games I've ever played, because that self-destruct thing where he just explodes into, like, fluff, into stuffing. I don't know why that hit me so hard, but I think it hit me so hard because those sorts of games, those all ages games, there's a cuteness, there's a comfort in them, which is why I think when people go after like Mario characters or Zelda characters to a lesser degree, but you know, Animal Crossing, those really kind of comforting games, as frustrating as they can be, there's a reaction that is very real and very defensive, because it's something that almost feels inviolate in a part of our brain, right? Like, it's that those games appeal to the part of our psyche that is not an asshole. At least I think. And that is a very real, very tender thing. Now, the thing you have to keep in mind with these people that do the hot takes is they're not in touch with that self-nurturing part of their consciousness. They're not great at self-compassion if they can do it at all. And so they don't understand nurture. They don't understand that cuddly quality that those games have. They have been trained to see everything as some sort of power dynamic, a kill or be killed, winner take all paradigm, which is not at all how most gamers come at things. Because, I mean, one of the things I think that is poorly understood about video games, and this sort of touches on the power fantasy thing I did last week, but from a different way. Before you win, you lose a lot in games, and not just in multiplayer, in like, any game with any sort of difficulty whatsoever. And I do find a schism between, I talk about that performative Gamergate, right? Gamers, like hardcore gamers, tend to play more difficult games. They play games with variable difficulty on harder difficulty settings. We take something positive out of getting our asses handed to us by these games. And I find that the people who are coming at it from more of a sociological kind of social justice perspective, they are looking for games to validate them instead of challenge them. And those are very different motivators. I don't necessarily play video games to validate my real life existence. I'll be completely honest. I play a lot of video games to escape my real life existence. Part of the reason I like playing as characters like Doom Marine and Kratos is I can be as friggin' aggressive as I want and nobody gets up. Oh, you're very angry. Oh, you're so aggressive. Like, no, I tend to say things very forcefully. And my experience has been that I watch a guy go in, and this is an entertainment industry thing. I'm not saying it's an across the board thing. Men are allowed to be aggressive assholes in video games. Women are supposed to be product placement spokesmodels, even in meetings. No, really, it sucks. And that's not exclusive to the entertainment industry. I'm just people like, but, other social circles, not so much. This is my experience. And so I play games because then I can punch people in the face and be as aggressive as I want and not have to mind my P's and Q's, because I like to just say stuff, because I assume that creative meetings are the place to say stuff, and everybody knows that it's not personal. It's in service to the product. Identifying weaknesses is part of the process. Nobody should get offended. It's not personal, and no person should be singled out. But people get so damn offended. And then people get backstabby, and I can't stand it. So I go into video games, and yeah, I'll play as a bald space marine, or I'll play as, a bald Greek guy, just because I can be as aggressive and direct as I want, and there are no negative social consequences. That's important for me to stay sane. And it's not that I'm looking for the games to validate how I look on the outside. It's a game validating how I solve problems on the inside, which is not gender conforming, right? And so I get it. I get why people are so protective of games, because your favorite games say something very personal about you. And I do think that the people who analyze games should be more sensitive to that. But again, a lot of the people who write about games, a lot of the people who get paid to write about games aren't coming at it from that perspective. They're coming at it from basically casual to moderate players who, have an angle that for whatever reason these websites like. But, no game reviewer, myself included when I did it, is ever going to be the best at a given game, because you have to, play the game, move on to the next one, play the game, move on to the next one. You don't have the time. And I think this is a real flaw in the system, personally, that the games have to be reviewed so quickly. It's a sort of thing where we're never the best at a game. I know that. But you should be fairly competent at a game that you're reviewing. Now, the truth is, you really don't know if you're going to be any good at a game when you first start playing it. You hope you are. There just seem to be too many people who review games that don't seem to be good at any particular game. And this was a real learning experience for me when I got on YouTube and, moved from, sort of that traditional games press into sort of the YouTuber space, is that when you're writing for a website, at least back in the day, there used to be some sort of presumption that you knew what you were talking about. A lot of the times people don't, and I think a lot of the times people get upset at an article because they go in with the presumption that somebody writing for a website is an expert to an extent in this stuff. And so when they say something that's obviously ignorant, there's this sense of unfairness that gets triggered. Now on YouTube, because anybody can upload videos on YouTube, there's no presumption you know what you're talking about. You have to sort of show that you know what you're doing games-wise. And it was really funny because I got a lot of grief early on of, oh, girl, this, people were very, she's an SJW, she's a feminist, fuck feminism, feminism is cancer. And then I uploaded me playing Doom and Cuphead. And then I started playing Sekiro on Twitch and Hollow Knight and games that require some skill. And those attacks stopped. I am actually astounded at how few of those I get these days. But because on YouTube and Twitch, that combo, you're able to prove that you are a decent player. I mean, when you're playing live and you suddenly encounter a boss you've never encountered before, people see fairly quickly if you're a decent player or not. And everybody has brain farts where they get stuck on something. But your skills or lack thereof become very apparent fairly quickly. And the biggest compliment I got, playing games like Doom, is that, when people were assuming I was playing on easy mode and then realized I wasn't. Yay. So, it's a sort of thing where there is a very clear meritocracy in games. And it is possible to have a true meritocracy in games because everybody's playing the same game. Right? It's not a subjective thing of soft skills and all this stuff. No, are you good at the game or you're not good at a game? And nobody needs you to be the best at a given game. You just have to be good enough to seem like you know what you're talking about, right? And I mean, this is very difficult when people are flying all over the place and doing lectures and stuff. But hey, the Switch exists now. There's no excuse. I'm kidding. But I mean, one of the things that's been very eye-opening for me is how respect can be earned when you have the ability to show what you're capable of doing. When you can show, you don't have to play great every single time, right? I've had off days on Twitch for sure. But, when you're showing that you are good enough at something to get through very difficult games, it is amazing how much more license you get in gaming to have more of a contentious opinion among core gamers. It's a very real thing, and it's a very positive thing. And it's something that gaming has that no other sort of entertainment art form can really equal, right? Because you can't show you're good at movies by watching a movie, right? Movies are very subjective things. You don't have to show any skill to watch a movie. Film analysis is a very subjective thing. I just saw Hobbs and Shaw over the weekend. What an example of a movie that's greater than the sum of its parts. The dialogue was atrocious in places. It was so by the numbers. It was clearly an homage to an 80s action flick, but it was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. It was just a cobbled together collection of action scenes with this very weird plot connecting it all together, but it was fun, but I'm sure that another film critic will go this and this and this and this. But with a game, it's like, are you good at the game or are you not good at a game? You can't be good at watching a movie or not good at watching a movie or a TV show. Or it's just your opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, right? But a game, you can actually display skill. And I think that's a very positive thing. And I think that the way forward in gaming is to really leverage that unique element of games that these other forms of media don't have. And so if you encounter a take that really angers you, I want you to keep this in mind, okay? Unless the developer totally folds and like yanks it out of the game the way they nerf the difficulty in places of God of War Ascension, and that kind of made me mad. But, you know, if it's just somebody expressing their opinion and griefing, the worst thing you can do is give it attention. Because let's face it, these articles are designed to get attention. That is the benefit of op-ed. They are cheap to write. They can be done very, very quickly. You don't have to do any legwork. You don't have to rely on any sources. You know, you just keyboard, warrior. Oops, I hit a button. It's a cheap form of padding the amount of content you can push. That serves a very important purpose while actually investigative reporting gets done, because investigative reporting takes a long time. And sometimes you decide not to report on something because you don't want to burn the source, because the source is more important for you for a bigger story. But with these op-eds, they're designed, they are bait a lot of times. More and more, these op-eds are designed to get somebody angry so that it ends up being posted all over the place, because enragement is engagement is the social media mantra. The best thing to do is to not play that game. You know, you can, you know, complain to your buddies, but this message board stuff, you're creating more powerful adversaries by going on Reddit and, you know, piling up on these articles. Yeah, they're stupid. They are. But what we really need to be doing, what is really lacking, especially since Total Biscuit passed away, because Total Biscuit was somebody who had contentious opinions, but gamers had respect for, so people go, him. We support him. There's a lack of people who are actually supported by the base these days, and who have a very high profile. I mean, yes, I get a ton of support, but I deliberately don't go for the big raw numbers. I go for quality over quantity. I stand by that. I think it's the right choice. I think it's a much more positive experience for people who come to my channel. But, you know, the fact that we have to choose now between quality and quantity indicates that there's something very broken in the system. But we have to play. We understand games. We have to play by the rules of the game that we're given. So if this is the game that you elevate people by complaining about them, keep that in mind when you complain. Which is something I know it frustrates some people, but to me, I have to have something meaningful to say instead of just dunking on someone, as fun as dunking on somebody can be. There's got to be a greater point for me to tackle an issue. And I've been seeing a lot of stuff of late. I get it upsets people, and I wish I could do something to make people feel better, because they don't deserve to feel that upset. But I'm not going to dignify. An article has to have enough merit in terms of how it is argued for me to bother with it. Because I've been in media so damn long now that I know how the game is played. And what I'd like to start doing, because that Power Fantasy video did quite well last week. I want to know what topics you guys are interested in. Please leave a comment about that, because I prefer to cater to the stuff you guys want to know about. I find that actually works very, very well. So please leave a comment and say what you're interested in talking about, because I'm really distracted with boss fight right now, and I can't keep up with what's going on. So this would really help me out too. And once boss fight is done, we are gonna start doing patron Zoom hangouts, because the thing we did for boss fight was unintentionally just a really, really fun vid chat hangout. So this is the Patreon plug ending the video. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Support the stuff you like. Move on from the stuff you don't. Don't give them power. Thanks for watching.